We still have about a month left of the college football season, and the Heisman race is still wide open. There are a number of players that still have a legitimate chance of winning the award, and there's still a number of players who could really enter the conversation with a really good final stretch of the season. So here's my Heisman top 10 as we get ready to enter week 11 of the college football season. We'll kick things off with Georgia quarterback Carson Beck, who's been fantastic for the Bulldogs this year. He's completing 72% of his passes and has thrown for 2,700 yards. He has 16 passing touchdowns and 3 touchdowns on the ground as well. He's been one of the best quarterbacks in the SEC this season, and it feels like he's really flying under the radar. This past weekend, in a big victory over Missouri, he threw for 250 yards with 2 passing touchdowns and no interceptions. I'm not sure if his numbers are going to be good enough to be a finalist, but if Georgia finishes the season undefeated, who knows, maybe the committee is going to take that into account. I got Jalen Milroe climbing into my top 10 after his unbelievable performance this past weekend against LSU. Through the air, he threw for over 200 yards, but what he did on the ground is one of the best performances we've seen from a quarterback in recent memory. He rushed for over 150 yards with 4 rushing touchdowns. Overall in the season, he's thrown for just under 2,000 yards with 13 passing touchdowns while rushing for 300 yards with 9 rushing scores. It was a slow start to the season for Milroe, but over the last 4 games, he really has emerged as one of the top quarterbacks in all of college football. JJ McCarthy continues to light up the stat sheet. This past weekend, he threw for 335 yards, a new season high. Although he threw for a season high in yards and had 24 passing completions, it was actually his first game all season in which he didn't throw a single passing touchdown. Still, Michigan ended up winning by 30 points, so they weren't really needed. I've been really up and down on JJ McCarthy this season, but if he has a great performance this weekend against Penn State and Michigan wins, he'll climb up my rankings, maybe even into my top 3. Florida State continues to win, and Jordan Travis continues to have great games. This past weekend against Pittsburgh, he was missing his 2 best wide receivers. Still, he had one of the best games of the year as he threw for 360 yards with a passing touchdown. For Travis, it was actually his most passing yards he's had in the game all season. For good measure, he also added a touchdown as well on the ground. Overall, Jordan Travis is number 2 in the ACC in total touchdowns responsible for with 26. He's also 3rd in the ACC with 2,600 total yards. USC lost this past weekend, but Caleb Williams had another phenomenal performance. Against Washington, he threw for over 300 yards with 3 passing touchdowns while scoring a touchdown on the ground as well. Overall, he's thrown for 3,000 yards this season with 28 passing touchdowns and only 4 interceptions. He's also added 10 touchdowns on the ground as well. Overall, Caleb Williams is number 1 in the entire country with 38 touchdowns responsible for. He's also number 3 in the country with 3,100 total yards. He might finish the season with the best numbers among any quarterback in all of college football, but the fact that USC has dropped 3 of their last 4 games has pretty much taken him out of the running. Unless USC somehow wins out and Caleb Williams has the greatest month we've ever seen, I don't think he's going to be repeating as Heisman winner. Oklahoma State running back Ollie Gordon just keeps climbing up my list. This past weekend in an upset win over Oklahoma, he rushed for 140 yards with 2 rushing touchdowns. Overall in the season now, he's rushed for over 1,200 yards and is averaging 7 yards a carry. He also has 12 rushing touchdowns, 22 receptions, and 200 receiving yards. Overall, Gordon's 1,400 yards from scrimmage lead all of college football. His 12 rushing touchdowns are also number 1 in the Big 12 and number 5 in the country. This now marks 6 consecutive games in which he's rushed for over 120 yards. It's also his 5th consecutive game with a rushing touchdown and his 3rd consecutive game with at least 2 rushing touchdowns. Even when Marvin Harrison Jr. has quiet games, he still produces most of the offense for Ohio State. This past weekend against Rutgers, he only caught 4 passes for 25 yards. Now 4 for 25 would be an awful day for a lot of top wide receivers, but he did have 2 receiving touchdowns and, like I said, provided most of the offense for Ohio State. He now has 52 receptions on the season for just over 900 yards with 10 receiving touchdowns. He currently leads the Big Ten in receiving yards and receiving touchdowns and is number 2 in receptions. If it wasn't for Marvin Harrison Jr., I honestly have no idea where this Ohio State team would be, because outside of him, they're not really getting offense from anywhere else. Before we get to the rest of my video, I'd like to share with you guys how you can win money and make the college football season even more exciting. I've partnered with Underdog Fantasy to bring you this amazing deal. If you download the Underdog Fantasy app and use promo code Harris, they'll match your first deposit up to $500. Yep, they're giving you up to $500 of free money. I've had a lot of success recently with college football and the NFL, and you can do the exact same with Underdog Fantasy. So make sure to use promo code Harris for a 100% deposit match up to $500. You can also sign up using the link in my description as well. Although LSU lost this past weekend, I still have Jaden Daniels pretty high. He really did all he could offensively, but unfortunately LSU's defense just couldn't win them the game. This past weekend, Jaden Daniels threw for over 200 yards with 2 passing touchdowns. He also rushed for over 160 yards with a rushing score as well. Jaden Daniels is having one of the better seasons we've seen from a quarterback in recent memory. He's thrown for 2,800 yards with 27 passing touchdowns. He's also added 700 yards on the ground with 6 rushing scores. Overall, Daniels leads the entire country with 3,500 total yards. He's number 2 in the country with 33 touchdowns responsible for. Daniels also leads the country in a few other categories, including total yards per play, passing yards per attempt, adjusted passing yards per attempt, and passing efficiency rating. He's also inside the top 10 in completion percentage as well. I know that LSU having 3 losses kind of hurts his chances, but Jaden Daniels, you can make the case, has been the best quarterback in all of college football this season. Michael Penix Jr. led Washington to another victory this past weekend with his road win over USC. He threw for 250 yards and had 2 passing touchdowns, so it was kind of a quiet game by his standards. Still, he's having an incredible season for the Huskies. He's thrown for 3,200 yards with 26 passing touchdowns. Currently, he leads the entire nation with his 3,200 passing yards. But I have another Pac-12 quarterback as my number 1 guy, and that's Oregon quarterback Bo Nix. This past weekend against Cal, he had one of the best games of his entire career. He completed 76% of his passes for 400 yards. He had 4 passing touchdowns and 2 rushing touchdowns as well. Overall in the season, Bo Nix is completing 78% of his passes. He's thrown for 2,700 yards with 25 passing touchdowns and only 2 interceptions. He's also rushed in 5 touchdowns on the ground as well. As of right now, there are 4 to 5 different players I honestly think you can make a legitimate Heisman case for, and I wouldn't have a problem if you listed any of them at number 1. But as of right now, I think Bo Nix has the slight edge over Michael Penix and a few of the other guys. But it's changing on a week-to-week basis, and we still have lots of college football left that needs to be played. Well, that wraps it up for my Heisman top 10 as we get ready to enter week 11. Was there a player that was too high or too low on my list? Or was there a player that wasn't in my top 10 that definitely should have been in here? Whoever it is, let me know in the comment section down below. Before you leave, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on those notifications if you're new to my channel. I'm posting college football videos every day during the season, so make sure to subscribe so you never miss a video. Also, don't forget to drop a like on this video as well. It helps out with that YouTube algorithm and helps share the video with more college football fans. Plus, it only takes a second to do. As always, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you all in my next video.